Thank you so much, Murad. I think all of you are very lucky to have been given this opportunity because I have not seen any such initiative in Pakistan. So you guys are really, really lucky. Well, I do hope that as you progress, that all of you will stay in the field in any way you want. And that's the purpose of this session. Okay. I will share my work, but also I want you people to be sure that whatever you want to do, whatever you want to achieve, you can. And it should not be in a straight jacket of any definition. You can do anything even after your degree in architecture. Okay, so I will start with something that I'm going to put out some questions for you guys to think about during all of this. And at the end of this, we can discuss this more. All right. So let me try and share screen. Okay, anyways. So as you know, these graphics tell you something. Right? When I go to colleges, I actually talk to people, interact, and get feedback from them. So while we are talking throughout this session, I want you to keep reflecting. I want you to keep reflecting. And this is the first question I have for you. Somebody can just note it down and then we can talk about it later. And the second one is I saw myself to be what in life while growing up, teenage years, or whatever. And I decided to join architecture school because somebody told me, because I was inspired by this one, or I wanted to serve something, whatever it could be. And then I want to know, what is your most pleasant memory of studying architecture? Because some of you are fourth year, final year, whichever year, right? And now that you've gone through 4 or 5 years, where are you? And these are not frivolous questions. You will realize why I'm asking these questions, because it also gives you an opportunity to really feel where you are going. And are you really going where you want to be or not really? So, how can you free yourself from it? And after all of this 4 years and 5 years of studies, I ask yourself, do I really know what an architect does? And I mean, it can even think of it in this way, that what all should an architect be doing, which an architect does not do at the moment? Whatever, think about it. And then what mold do I want to create for myself? Yeah. So these are a few questions. Keep reflecting on it while we go through the presentation. So what I want to do is actually share some of the projects that I worked with the Aga Khan Development Network. And I have chosen mostly the Ismaili centers because that kind of gives you a flavor of a similar design space program, but in different contexts. And how really, with the ethos of really looking at it from an Islamic architectural perspective as well. So these Ismaili centers basically have social spaces, community spaces, learning spaces to enhance your intellect, and a prayer hall. These are the main space program. And then there are, of course, the administrative offices. But how does, now we have Ismaili centers in so many countries. We have two in Canada, Toronto and Vancouver, one in London, one in Lisbon, one in Dushanbe. This is the one in Dushanbe, in Tajikistan. Dushanbe is the capital of Tajikistan. And another one in Horog. So I will go through, I think, 3 of them over here because I was involved. Now for this Dushanbe one, I was involved mostly during the design phase, because then I started working on another project. So during construction, somebody else was at site, and I was basically the design manager, and the architects were from Canada. But as you can see, this is the uh, right now you're seeing an abstract, because on the right what you see is the front portal, and the other which you see are towers, but it does not look like it is presented in this kind of a thing. What you will see is the essence of architecture from Samarkand, Bukhara, because at that time also we had all the mathematicians, scientists. So there is a Islamic and an Ismaili linkage to this region, and so the architects got the inspiration from there. Now you are all aware that in during USSR times, all the buildings that were built were very stoic, very full of concrete, very foreboding, very Russian. Okay. And all of this finesse of doing work in stone and thing had disappeared. So the idea of doing all of this here in this kind of brick, sorry, it's not stone, it's brick, is to basically create that all over again and give the sense to the people here. So I think you're beginning to kind of feel this. So these are not textures, but actually done in bricks. Okay. And geometry plays a very strong part in Islamic architecture, as you know. Now, the close-up. Now you can begin to see how this kind of work is done. And you can imagine what it was to actually rekindle that kind of craft, because you didn't have that kind of labor anymore who could do this kind of intricate uh, construction. And you, um, basically it's all you're already getting a sense with the blue bricks also colored in blue, and then this in it's a sandy color thing, and you can see the calligraphy on the portal, Allahu Akbar. And this is all done by hand by people on site. I mean, the installation, of course. And then wood always has a strong role to play. So this is the main portal. And you do realize that one of the principles also in Islamic architecture is the whole role of the portal. If if anybody has even come to the Aga Khan University, in Karachi, you will see how important those portals are. From far, it is grandiose. It's very inviting. But as you approach it, do you see the scale of the door? It's very human scale. So when you enter the building, you enter in a very humbled way, right? So there is this inviting portal, and then there is when you become very down to your level as a human being to enter a building. So it tells you a lot about your connection with Allah, that He's above all of this, is huge. But when you try to enter Him and connect with Him, I don't know, him, her, I don't know, I can't, this Gen Z language is a little difficult for me, but I will refer it to as him, is like when you connect, then you have to be humble. So the buildings that are done in all of these Ismaili centers have very grandiose portals, and then you have this entrance. Okay, so once you're in the door, you will see this whole geometry now coming into play. Where you see the pattern, and you will relate it to all the other Smiley centers, though they have different architects as I go along. Again, I don't need to repeat about the kind of the screens that are coming in, again, in brickwork, stonework, and this is all marble. But, most of the sourcing is done within the region. And then this That's your entrance foyer. And then you move, of course, there are seatings around here for people to wait and then people to proceed. This is also a way in this entire building, as you can see, even in the Fatimid times, if you read history, when you enter these kind of buildings, there's a kind of a processional, uh, how should I say it? It's a processional way you go through a place. So whereas this foyer scale is very different, but it's the not space to which you go through all of this, it takes you in a certain direction, has a different way. Now this is a close up. So this is what you see in the facade. You see how the knuckles also go around. This craft did not exist because this building came into the design started somewhere around 2003. 2004 was the groundbreaking, and then the opening was in 2007. No, sorry, later. Yeah, the construction started probably five or six, I think. And then it got, I think it was opened in 2009. So what I want to tell you here is that because that after the fall of USSR, Tajikistan was was one of the poorest country, and still tends to be. Uzbekistan is rich in oil. Kyrgyzstan is rich in something else. So this country where you I want to say in the time of USSR, they were all interdependent. So people, in fact, in Tajikistan, they used to send plane loads of bread and everything from other countries because they didn't have wheat growing over here. But and then from here, I think they were cotton growing, so they would send cotton back. It was more of a barter and interdependent because USSR didn't want anybody to be completely independent, and that is why at the fall of it, when the Cold War and everything ended, each country was really, really struggling. And to be understand where, to the extent that when I went there for the first time after the fall of Russia was in 1997, the civil war was still on. You could hear firing out there. But being from Karachi, one was used to these things. But what I want to say is that it was as though people were deprived of their soul. It was as though people were deprived of their self-esteem because they all used to dress so well. They used to have jobs. They used to have money, and there was literacy was like very high. There were countless number of PhDs and doctors. And after that, how much did they start earning? After the fall of Russia, it was hardly $5 a month. And how could they survive in something like that? In fact, they used to do rotations, like in hotels also. They would have some staff coming 3 days a week and another set of staff coming 3 days a week. So they could divide the money, over there. So this building came at a time to actually create that kind of a pride amongst the community, amongst the people, that, you know, yeah, so when you get that kind of a pride, what do you feel? You start to feel that self-respect again and self-esteem again, and you want to do things right. You won't believe it, at that time they didn't even have a proper hardware stores, or yeah, we couldn't buy paint of the same type for the longest time. And now over the years, of course, things have changed. But so this is an exterior wall, and this is the pattern of saying Ali, Allah, Hussein, Zahra, the Panchtan. And this is the interior, a part of one of the walls in the interior which has that. This is another foyer because it's so you go through that corridor and then you come again in another foyer area, which then leads to the prayer hall. So going through here, you will approach the prayer hall. But this again is a crush space where people can gather. You take off your shoes here, you can gather, and then you enter the prayer hall from there. Uh, And you can again see the kind of calligraphy all done in. You might think, oh, so what? You see these bricks? They're all turned at 45 degrees. These are not cut bricks. So it creates this kind of pattern. Now, what do these do? These also create during the day, you will see shade and shadows, and it's very pleasing that way. So everything has a meaning. It's not just done. Okay, now you see these five towers, right? So in Tajikistan, in the area called Gorno-Badakhshan, which is also kind of almost attached to our northern areas, you can't come in directly, but you know the northern areas of Pakistan, which is your Gilgit-Baltistan area, and then the the Afghanistan, that Badakhshan and this Badakhshan are kind of, you can say it can be contiguous if we would allow it. But these are the whole Pamir, Himalaya, Hindu Kush mountains, which kind of bring it all together. But that I'll come to when I do Horog. But this basically, the architect created this concept of five because that is what they found. They have these five columns in the indigenous houses. Those who have been to Hunza will also see that in the local houses. So these five towers are beacons of light, kind of interpreted from those five columns. So in the evening, this completely lights up. And then these are the things which are visible. So there's not a monstrosity of a building which you see from far. It is all, you can see it's all broken down. And similarly, these are the steps of roof, which are, so this is the top and then two down and two down there. So that concept of five comes in here as well. What I want you to do while doing this is also to reflect that how you draw inspiration from something so small and yet use it in your building, conceptualize it, and also create meaning for the local people over there. There is no kind of a copying of anything because otherwise it would not be an institutional building. But taking something as a five concept and putting it out here and also creating building which is kind of scaled down, not in your face till you approach it, it's a very Islamic concept, right? And this is an architect, it's the artist's rendering, but this is your main portal. And so people who arrive who arrive by vehicle will actually, there's a ramp here and it takes you all the way. And then you can go down and park in the basement. But then there's pedestrian gate. And because in this area, the people are not so well to do, they will come by public transport. They come here. So they go step by step, enjoying the pool as well as they approach this. You do know that water and greenery is a very important part of our Islamic architecture. Okay, so now when we talk about Islamic architecture, it is not it is not driven by any material. I'm going to now show you a few images of Ismaili Center, Toronto, where you know that over there the material is they use a lot of glass and steel, and yet interpreted for the same space program. So this was designed, the Smiley Center. Now uh, it is an interpretation of a dome, and it was very difficult to build. And we had glass manufacturers actually doing tons of shop drawing to make it possible. And you can see that as this comes down, this whole dome sits on the prayer hall. Prayer hall is kind of round. I'll show you the master plan as well. And then this kind of comes down. I mean, my interpretation, okay? Do not quote me on. I feel that it's this light coming down again as a scale. This is the mihrab wall in smaller. And this is done in onyx and brass. So it's a diffused light. Here you get all of it. The heating is all done under the floor because you can't have it from the top or anything like that. So this complex, okay, I'll come to it when I show you the master plan. But I just wanted to show you that the same design program in different countries, how it is interpreted with different architects. Do you see this part? Again, this is an artist rendering. I don't think it's a picture. So you see, this is that dome that I was talking to you about. And all of this is glass coming down, which is the mihrab wall. This is the foyer to the prayer hall. And again, geometry with light coming in. Uh, this is a pattern. Um, it's actually acoustic. It serves as acoustic also, but there's a whole rhythm going around it. Also showing progression, but again, very Islamic in that sense. Interpretation of that geometry in metal. So not everything has a meaning. Ah, there it is, that interior. No. Okay, so this is what it is. This is that whole round prayer hall, but your entrance is from that side, from here, and then you have your social space, community space. Courtyards are very important, and that's again an outdoor kind of an sitting area. Let me show you now. This is the master plan. What I want to show you on this site is this site does not have the smiley center. This plus, now look at the beauty of this. You have two giant architects working on the same big site. I say one side because, it's all kind of contiguous with this garden. So this was Charles Correa. This is done by Maki, the Japanese architect. And this garden is done by Vladimir, forgetting his last name. He is from Lebanon. So three different people, but this two different buildings. So we had two different teams working on it, yet also coordinated. So it was a huge team working on that project. Again, because I was involved in other things, I was only involved in the very early stages of this project. So whoever gets a chance to go to Toronto, please visit it. It is beautiful. This museum is out of this world. The play of light and shadows through these walls are incredible. And go in the summer so you can enjoy this garden as well. This garden connects it to the center. And you'll get tours all the time, museum. So Smiley centers are generally open to everyone. They have tour timings. You can go, there are conferences, meetings, places of learning in there, great library. So, yeah. So the concept also changes. The space program and the guidelines may be the same, but then the architect has to interpret it. And also there has to be a strong inspiration. And that inspiration can come from various sources, right? So, generally we talk about Islamic architecture also, or architecture to be used by Muslims. We kind of take it back just to the Mughal period or to, maybe Egypt or Syria, but that's not what it is. It because of that time, those are the kind of materials that were there. But now the Muslims are everywhere in the world. So if you want to design for that community to be in use by Muslims, and so you can always, so architect's role in this is so it's not an easy task, you do realize. These big names, it also took them long. The concept made, okay, the first concept comes very quickly, but then to actually execute the entire design, to go through that entire design process also is tough for them, right? Because then in these kind of places where you have it's very cold, how do you bring the heat in? How does it work? All of that needs to be thought about. So जब स्माइली सेंटर दिखाया तब आपको दोनों दुशांबे में भी और टोरंटो में भी मैंने बताया कि वो प्रेयर हॉल है. Prayer hall is one space of the Smiley Center. It is not the entire. बाकी सारे स्पेसेस जो है ना, वहाँ आपका वो है, सारा सोशल स्पेस है, लर्निंग स्पेसेस है, मीटिंग स्पेसेस हैं, तो वहाँ everybody can come in. Smiley Center is more like an ambassadorial building and it's open throughout the day. Whereas when you look at your Gilgit-Baltistan Jamaat Khanas, these Jamaat Khanas are very only for prayer timings. वो सुबह फजर के वक्त और शाम के वक्त. Okay, so, and it is only for the community to pray. And that's another, we'll embark on another discussion if I say why somebody is going into the prayer hall or not. It's different from a masjid. A masjid is somewhere where everybody goes. The prayer hall in this, for the Jamaat Khana is like a khanka make andar ek prayer ka jagah ho jaye, where it's very, very specific for Smileys, and it's a supererogatory prayer different from what you would do in a masjid. मैं डिजाइनर नहीं हूँ, मैं प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर हूँ, प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर थी। वो जो आर्किटेक्ट ने, मैंने आपको बताया ना कि जितना आपका बदख्शान एरिया है ना, जो गिलगित बाल्टिस्तान है, इट्स पार्ट ऑफ बदख्शान। इसी तरह से जो वहाँ पे ताजिकिस्तान में है, वो भी एक बदख्शान है, अफगानिस्तान में भी बदख्शान है। इफ यू लुक एट द मैप यू विल फिगर आउट। तो वहाँ पे जो इंडिजिनस हाउसेज होते हैं, वो हर उन सब में ये 5 का कॉन्सेप्ट है, और वो 5 कॉलम का और वैसा रूफ, स्टेप रूफ ऑफ 5। तो इंस्पिरेशन उनको वहीं से मिला है, गिलगित बल्तिस्तान से नहीं, वो ताजिकिस्तान से लिया है, ठीक है। बट बिकॉज इट्स अ सिमिलैरिटी इन द माउंटेन्स, दैट्स व्हाई यू फील इट। See that what you're talking about is that all these are all big names. तो एक आप जब आप एक आर्किटेक्चर के एक लेवल पे पहुंच जाता है, उसका मतलब ये नहीं होता कि now I can do whatever. They're still, if you have the passion for it, if you understand architecture correctly, then you will go through all of that, right? Then only you can create great projects, projects which are remembered for decades and decades and generation, right? This is a good observation. But rather than merger, I would use the word for today's time. So you are interpreting Islamic architecture for today's time, because Muslims are wherever they live is, and the purity of using that material, that's also very important. So it's for today's time, and interpretation according to the context. Okay. All right. Now this is another Smiley Center. Can you tell me where it is, you think? It's in Dubai. Okay. Interestingly, Dushanbe and Dubai were happening around, I mean, after the design started, but in this, I was involved right from design to all of construction. So, okay, sorry, this was designed by architects from Egypt called Rami Al-Dehan and Sohail Faredi, RDSF. They are students of Hassan Fathi. Yes, they are, I would say they are disciples. This is the only, because that's the language they design in. So again, the same design brief in space program. I won't say design brief, space program. But the thing here was that they had to look at it from the Fatimid perspective, looking at Fatimid architecture, because they came from Egypt. And these architects, you know, like they are so humble in the sense of their architecture. It's very majestic too, but the whole idea of the feel of the material that they have, what stone means, like in its all its finesse, as well as in its brittleness, as well as its you know, the quarry, where it comes from, how will it be? And I'll also explain some of the construction to you. Now, as I said, the portal in an Islamic tradition is also again very, very welcoming, and then it brings you down to the human scale. So this is the main portal of it. You will see that the cars can actually drive up and then go to the basement. And again, you can see some landscaping, which tells you that people can come walking through as well. And then you see those, the dome. These are This is the entrance dome, and I will tell you that there were lots of Pakistanis and Kashmiris who, from Punjab here, who are actually very good in brickwork. So there was one main contractor, but we had to have many um, lump sum, many subcontractors who were specialized in different things. So we had somebody, one for stone and brick, and one for some other one for marble, some other one for wood, everything. So, and the general contractor mostly did concrete, and others provided support to all the other trades. So, can you move on to? So, this is the main entrance, and so there's a lot of wood, use of wood. Now, when you move in, I want you to start noticing the lintels in all of these. You already see windows and lintels because I want to tell you how it's made. Next slide, please. Again, as in the other one, what I told you was that you in Dushanbe, if you remember, that you come into a very nice foyer, and then you have a processional corridor, and you can see this very series of arches. These are not just series of arches. Actually, that roof is all vaulted, stone walls with glass, as you can see in that corridor. Now you see, yeah, and then okay, now let me explain some of the things. So you see those wood lintels. These are nothing which has been put in place, or what the way it is done is it was actually created as a formwork, and then concrete was filled in to make it a lintel. So it was the whole construction methodology at that time when Dubai was booming with just towers, it was completely the opposite. It was to the essence of what true construction would be. So again, these stones are not cladding. All of these stones are cut in shape, put in place, and then concrete is poured in it. These stones are from Aleppo. So we had a Syrian contractor who was looking at stone. And very interestingly, they had to, from Syria to bring it to Dubai, they had to cross the Saudi border. And these were measured and cut in the factory there. You can't cut it on site. So you can imagine how precise the drawings were, not only from the architects. So we used to have these long meetings with the architects and also the contractors for these trades, because they had to mark each stone to be in the right place. And surprisingly, when we talk about this kind of stuff, the construction, it started in August 2004, and it was completed in 2007, end of 2007, and opened in March 2008. So such a complicated building. It was fascinating for me. I mean, each of the Smiley centers that I've been involved in has been so exhilarating. I can't even begin to tell you. So yeah, so and all of these lights also were custom made, and these were from Egyptian artists, not just normal light guys. So a lot of work went in. Next. So this is that entrance dome right on top of where we were before you enter that vaulted space. You can see the brick, you can see even some of the watermarks in there. Bricks always have them. Yeah, this is that dome over there. This place, I think, has how many domes? If I'm not mistaken, 7 domes of different types. Um, and all of these are constructed one upon the other, each layer upon the other, and there is no the stone ring that you see. It's a stone ring on which these bricks rest to create a dome. There is no steel in this, not in this dome. In stone, it's a ring beam in stone, not no steel. Arches below and then down. Right. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay. Now this is another dome. This has a lot of stone, and then the only the top has brick. Because this is, I'm not sure if it's 18 meters in diameter or what. This whole 18 or 21 meters in diameter. This the stone one. You will see the next slide when you'll see the more depth of it. What I wanted to also have, this is the dome in the prayer hall. And what I wanted to tell you was, like, you see two layers of lights. You see it? Two rings. So the first one is on top. So it was the whole thing. Over here, we have steel and concrete, okay, to hold this particular, what do you call it, the dome. When you look at it, this you will see those lines also, the thread of the thing going, the steel going in, the metal going into the dome. Do you see that little circle up there where where you can see those steel ropes going? You can see it. I can't mark it for you. Yeah. So the first ring of the lights was actually put in place at that time, so that then we let the ropes out so that the actual chandelier could come later. So nothing was simple, but everything was worked out. So, and then what I'm also trying to get at as a project manager is, how do you time everything? How do you schedule everything? At what stage what comes in? Beautiful architecture, I won't even say beautiful, but historic. So, no, this is just another view of the completed lights, and you can see the claustras over there, and then there's space beyond those arches on at the upper level. Next. I did mention that all of the Smiley centers, any project that you do, which is Islamic, has to have very good courtyards, really inspired by Charbagh. But of course, when you say Charbagh, it does not have to be just four quadrants, but how you use your trees and your water pools and everything. So this is the central courtyard. Where you see those big windows, that's where that corridor was, which I showed you in the earlier slide. Next. And you can see all of this over here, the passage where people actually really, in the winters in Dubai, you really enjoy this space. And again, I'll come back to tell you that these were all, they used to bring, and there would be stone held by two people, like formwork. There would be steel in there, and then they would pour concrete. So then it became one solid block like that. So it's monolithic in many ways. Lots of water bodies in this place. Next. You can see the trees. So this water goes from this, it comes down from the fountain into the central water space, and then through the canal, it goes into these trees, to those channels. So nothing is for sure. Everything has a meaning. Okay, next. And next, yeah. And this is another courtyard, which which you can see through other spaces. And it is like what they call salsabil, but this is that water sheet, So this whole marble piece is carved out like a pheasant's breast. You know what I mean? It goes like arches. When you see a bird's breast, pheasant's breast, it has those patterns like this. And then the water sheet comes down and flows into this trough, and also it circulates back, because this trough also has its own very soothing small fountain. And these water bodies in that heated climate is so important. You will notice all of these lights. Now, when you do over there these kind of projects, we have to be very sensitive also about external lighting. Now, though these were done in brass, we ensured that, and handmade, we ensured that these also were IP 60 At that time, it was IP 65 or 67, I'm not sure. Those are the rating for the external lighting, so that it doesn't get affected by your weathering conditions outside. Next. So when the left corner shows again that entrance hall, which had a fountain. I showed you the dome earlier. This is the fountain. And then the bottom left is another space which has a wooden dome, and then the sitting area for people when they come in. And what you see, another small thing here with the stonework below, and then there you see a little balcony that's also in stone, but I don't know, it's a shade or whatever it was. And then there's a library beyond it. So what you see on the bottom left from the inside, the outside looks like what you see in that small space which from outside at the courtyard. It overlooks that central courtyard with water channels and stuff that I was telling you about. So inside and outside of that same space. And then, of course, that corridor. So this is all Hassan Fatih. I hope you guys know who Hassan Fatih is. Yes. So imagine, but he did everything in mud. And these guys now have taken it obviously to another level because of the context and the scale of the project. So you have to understand this. I have to tell you that all of these projects are very closely I won't say monitored, but looked at by His Highness the Aga Khan. He is very particular into what he wants and how he wants it. So when Tajikistan was getting something which for them was something modern, Dubai, where you were getting all these towers, you were getting something from the period of history. And to date, this stands out as the most different project than what takes place in Dubai, right? It's very interesting. While we were at site, there's another mosque next to the Smiley Center. There's a mosque. And while we were at site, and sometimes we'd order food, so the people would say, yeah, yeah, we know the place, the old mosque which is being built next to the new mosque. So they only referred this to as the old mosque because this is what they thought about. Anyways, and they have a lot of outreach events here where you have ambassadors coming in, you have the different rulers of this UAE coming in for different events. And each of the spaces are used a lot. I didn't have any images for the social hall. I would have shared that. That's all wooden flooring and all beautifully done. Okay. Now, next project, I take you back to Tajikistan to Khorog. This Khorog is the capital of Badakhshan over there. Now look at that context. And I used to drive 14 hours, go from Karachi, go to Dubai, be in transit, take another flight to Dushanbe. You arrive in the middle of the night. Sometimes you want to stay over, you don't. Sometimes you don't. You drive directly for about 12 hours or 14 hours to get to Khorog. And I used to do that every 6 weeks at my age. My back is broken doing all of that. But anyways, why do I say it? It's not about me. Again, I say when you have the passion, when you enjoy what you do, you will do it. And nothing comes easy in life. Murad will tell you that. Okay, so what you see over here is that building, the Smiley Center. The one looks like the social hall looks just like a pavilion, and on the left of it is the prayer hall. And the setting is so beautiful that one side you see mountains, the other side is river. It's just gorgeous, stunning. Next. Right. Next. So this is that again, the main entrance, again, a portal. So this is the portal, and as you go in, you will see that the door scales down. On the right side of it is the library and learning area. On the left side, you will see the social hall. And the entrance portal is double heighted because beyond that, one is your entry level, and then there's another space above it. Next. Now, what were the architects so inspired by? Those who live in the northern areas know that poplar trees are very, you see it everywhere. And the architect, if you hear him talk about it, again, Farooq Noor Mohammed, he was in Karachi recently, he's based in Canada. He had a thing about how these poplar trees you see when you're driving, they are actually covering the street and they almost look like marching trees. You know, it's giving you a direction. So this is how he actually wanted to use poplar. But if you have a height of about 30 meters, you can't, that won't take the load. And all of this actually has steel inside, and then it's clad in wood. But look at the precision where in the remotest of mountains when you need to work. Next. And this is the other side. So we go to this corridor and come out on the other side where you have that big courtyard with the fountains. And then beyond that, you will see the river. All of this is done in stone, huh? And all of this stone is local from the mountains. I kid you not. But these are clad because this is in a heavy seismic zone. Dubai is not in a heavy seismic zone. This is almost, you know how many earthquakes come in these areas. And you will see in these columns also that the fabric which is inserted in there is of local tradition, and the women in the villages actually made that. And then, so look at that coordination to be doing something like that. Next. Again, this is the prayer hall. You enter the prayer hall, you see the mihrab wall, which has calligraphy, and there's light coming from the two sides. Actually, it makes a U channel or a U because it comes from top also the light. So there's a break in there. Left and right are your doors, which are actually fire exits, but your main entrance is from one side. And whoever was asking me about fire, you see that same thing here. You have the five column. This is not the center. If anybody thinks that it's lying in the center, it's not. This fifth column is way back. And if you zoom in, which maybe you can, again, these columns have calligraphy. You can see the, oh, next, go to the next, you'll see it. Yeah, no, pitch, huh. So you see the pattern of geometry. You will see calligraphy in these main columns, not calligraphy, patterns. Now, these are all inspired by local patterns. Okay? Even the door, the window, the pattern on the window, the stained glass, the column, it's all inspired by that. Next. So this shot is from the main courtyard to that. It's a space between the prayer hall and the social hall. So you see this beautiful fountain, and it's all at floor level. The spouts and everything at floor level. And because accessibility is very important, right, for the old people. So everything is accessible in that sense. Next. Now, what do you see here? This is done by hand by the locals over there. This kind of an alabaster work. It's very similar to alabaster work, and these motifs and everything are very local. So they did it at site by hand. And then you see the sitting area, right? Now, all of this fabric, the carpentry, the not the carpentry work, but the furniture was done by a Pakistani vendor. And all of this patterns which were selected by the architects, we got it all done. The different patterns of fabric in different places, different colors. I got them all done in Pakistan, and then they took it there and installed it. Next. So you see the social hall here, all wooden floor, Everything is wood, and then you see the local Suzanis. This is their textile work, textile tapestry, which they call Suzani. So this that's the entrance as you enter, and then you move on to the social hall. Next, this is an area again for people to for the community to come and meet. Again, you see this fabric, all done in Pakistan, but all local patterns. Their patterns. And then you look out, you look in. It's beautiful sitting there and enjoying that space. Next. This is just above the portal, which I showed you earlier. This is for, high dignitaries or somebody who would come. So this is their meeting space, a lounge, a small lounge. Next. But do you see this wood and glass and how it's coming together? These are all double glazed, or some are even triple glazed. So imagine carting all that material all the way there when I'm telling you how difficult it was for me also to travel there. Next. This is the outdoor space outside the social hall, not near the river, but towards the other side. And it is really enjoyed by the people. And you can see how their own dressing, the locals, the way they dress. It's like if you say Gilgit is the capital of northern areas here, Khorog is the capital over there for the northern areas. Next. So I think this picture is taken from across the river and in the evening. See how beautiful it looks. And I think that there was a lot of emphasis on transparency, because imagine Russia where everything was closed, and here it was decided to give a lot of transparency in the building. So there's a message that goes across, and there's a um, okay, no, we'll talk about how each space program, but so many different architecture. Okay, now I have something. This is all about architecture. Murad mentioned that I was the chair for Focus. You know that, and you being from Gilgit-Baltistan would know about all the natural disasters that we have. So what we do is we work with communities at various levels. One is to say that we try to create awareness, do mitigation, create community emergency response team who can be the first responders, and then comes mitigation, rehabilitation. So let's move on to that, to the next slide. Complete change of taste. These are called hazard map and risk, and the other one is the risk map. So over here, you identify areas which are prone to different hazards, whether it's prone to landslide, whether it's prone to flooding, whether it's prone to debris flow, because seismically, though it's all the same. But or is it for rock fall, or is it for glacier lake outburst? So this is the hazard that is shown. The next map shows the risks that are involved. So this map, then we've when I till the time I was the chair, we had done it for about 654 villages. 654 villages in northern areas in Chitral, Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. And this is a guideline. So, and you see very little green area. Green, where you see green, it's not greenery. It means it is a relatively safe area. This is where people can live. But when the risk map, if what we also show are the number of households, and like where the mosques and all the infrastructure and everything is shown in the risk map, which shows that all of these are at risk. But unfortunately, there aren't enough relatively safe areas. So, and people over there have their own parcels of land. They don't want to move. Then we talk about how to mitigate that risk. or at least at the time of disaster to have the community emergency response team evacuate. So there's no loss of life or minimal loss of life or of cattle. It is, yeah, your asset might be compromised, but then you can come and build it if you're not moving to a safer place. But all of this is planned with the mapping, community emergency response team who are trained. And then you have stockpiles over there that in case you have to evacuate people and put them up, where are you going to put the tent? How are you going to supply them food? Because then you have dry food items, right? Blankets, soaps, whatever. When there's a major disaster, it's a different story. Then you have to build like almost tent camps and housing. But you have to remember that if there is an avalanche, the avalanche is a very seasonal thing which is related at the time of snow. It depends also whether the snow is light. If it's heavy, it won't fly. If the snow is light, it's very wind. Being in those communities, people help each other. So they move to other person's house because it's very seasonal or it's like a couple of days and then they can come back. So every disaster has a different time frame, it has a different recuperating time, it has a different rehabilitation time. Nothing is There is nothing which you can say 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, and that's why I would always fight with engineers on anything. Next. So what I wanted to show you over here was, you can see that pen, right? So there was a team at Focus, we have a team of geologists जो देख रहे थे कि ये जो पहाड़ है वो खुल रहा है. आपको तो सिर्फ पेन रख के दिखाया, वो तो मार्क करके वो सारा कुछ देखते थे. तो जो कम्युनिटी डायरेक्टली उस रास्ते में इम्पैक्ट होना था, उनको तो हमने बहुत पहले से इवैक्यूएट करके दूसरी जगह ले गए थे. लेकिन जब ये डिजास्टर आया अचानक से, फिर पहाड़ टूटा, whatever, it was the worst. It's like one in a 200-year or 400-year kind of a disaster. It was really bad. तो उस वक्त ये हुआ कि जो लोग, आपको पता है कि वो जो रिवर होता है उसमें ऊपर से अगर कोई किसी ने ट्री काट दी तो वो नीचे आ रहा होता है, तो पीपल पिक अप लॉग्स, पीपल कट लॉग्स. तो जो नीचे की तरफ थे, जो कम्युनिटी एक्चुअली एट रिस्क नहीं थे, जो नीचे की तरफ थे, जो बिल्कुल दरिया के पास गए थे वो काटने, वो लोग सफर किए बिकॉज द होल थिंग एक्चुअली केम डाउन, blocked the river, and there was a backsplash. Backsplash तो हम छोटा समझते हैं ना किचन के backsplash को, but the whole thing came from the river and hit the community which was below, which actually no one could have anticipated, and we even got experts बाहर से भी to come and look at that. आपको right ये जो नजर आ रहा है, तो इसमें आप next पे जाएं. ये जी लैंडस्लाइड आ रहा है ऊपर, ये पूरा पहाड़ गिर के ये नीचे की तरफ और मिट्टी मिट्टी और सब कुछ आ रहा है. सो इट ब्लॉक द हुंजा रिवर फॉर एवर. देन द आर्मी ऑल्सो केम इन टू प्ले. और इसमें ये तो इतना, इसको हम रोलिंग डिजास्टर कहते हैं कि भाई, बिकॉज द रिवर वॉज ब्लॉक, द हुंजा रिवर वॉज ब्लॉक, ऑल द विलेजेस विच वर अपस्ट्रीम, क्योंकि ये जनवरी में हुआ था. और आपको पता है फिर मार्च तक तो ये सारा कुछ स्नो मेल्ट होना शुरू होता है, तो पानी नीचे की तरफ आता है, और ये ब्लॉक हो गया था. और जब ये ब्लॉक हो गया तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो ऊपर वाले विलेजेस जो है, वो जैसे कि शिशकट है, आइनाबाद है, वो सारा कुछ it started submerging. And so we had to monitor that so that people could actually dismantle their houses, salvage their material, and go to an upper. So it was so sad कि हम इनको बता रहे थे पानी ऊपर चढ़ रहा है, ऊपर चढ़ रहा है. FWO was involved in cutting that mountain तो ताकि spillway बने और वो पानी नीचे आए. It took about good 7-8 months. May में I know they opened the spillway, लेकिन पानी बहुत आहिस्ता आहिस्ता अभी भी है. But what has happened? Go to the next slide. From disaster to opportunity. This is what that lake looks like now, and they call it the Atabad Lake. People have started making hotels there. They have boating there. अब मैंने ये भी सुना है कि बाहर से कोई आ रहे हैं जो इसके थ्रू इलेक्ट्रिसिटी क्रिएट करेंगे. अब जो जो लोगों को ये पता नहीं है, वो तो यही समझेंगे कि हुंजा का ज्योग्राफी हमेशा ये था. अब तो चाइनीज ने आके थ्रू द टनल गुलमित का रास्ता निकाला है, वरना तो रास्ता था ही नहीं फॉर 3 years और सो. सो ये सब कुछ है. एनीवे, सो दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू से कि सिनारियो एक जैसा नहीं रहता. डिजास्टर हो भी जाए, आप आगे बढ़ के कुछ और कर सकते हैं. दिस इज द ब्यूटी ऑफ ह्यूमन माइंड and nature. Yeah, but nature is very unforgiving over here in these areas. वो आप उससे खेले हैं इसलिए तो ये हुआ है. ये पहाड़ खुद ब खुद थोड़ी हिल जाते हैं. आप जाके पता नहीं क्या क्या उधर से तोड़ के लाते हैं, ग्रीनरी खत्म कर देते हैं. ये क्लाइमेट चेंज ऐसे ही नहीं होता. इधर बहुत जो भी इंटरवेंशन आप करते हो उसकी वजह से होता है. Anyway, so I think this is all that I want to say. बट ओके, स्किप नेक्स्ट स्लाइड को आप जल्दी से वो कर दें. पता नहीं ये क्यों था, किसी को नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे चले जाएं. This is what Murad was talking about anyway. So this is a lot about next, yeah, notion of social consciousness. आपको बहुत ही सो होना पड़ता है, लोगों के बारे में सोचना पड़ता है, वरना आर्किटेक्चर विदाउट पीपल मेक्स नो सेंस. If it's not serving the purpose for people, and you are not really behaving, and your architecture is not also in line with the environment, then what is it? So being really conscious is very important. And I'm talking about myself, that I have, it's not I have achieved anything. It's always a team, so we always achieve together. There is never a single achievement. आप आर्किटेक्ट हो जी, बिल्डिंग मैंने बनाई, ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. किसी ने आपका कंस्ट्रक्ट किया, किसी ने आपके साथ मिलके बहुत कुछ किया. Every person, even the person who serves you tea. So yes, pluralistic inclusivity, not only in your design but in your team and in your feeling, in your emotion. It can't be lip service. If you don't feel it, then you won't be able to do it. And that's where the sense of satisfaction comes. And I always like to quote Rabindranath Tagore, who says that I slept and I dreamt that life was a joy. I woke up and found that life was a duty. I performed my duty and found life to be a joy. So, so your duty has to be something which you enjoy, which has a passion, which can be your duty is your dream, which brings your dream comes to reality. If you take it as a chore, तो फिर तो it's best not to do it. That's what I believe. Well, the thing that I don't really want to be in, I won't do it. If I have a choice. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Anyways, that's all. It's a lot for you to absorb. But as a project manager, when I work on the design part of it with design architects, there's a lot of input because I'm just not a project manager, I'm actually a client's representative. So an input that goes in, and then how we work around it together. So I get an opportunity to design with the design architects. Okay. It's not only it's not a mechanical job as a project manager. And then I also like in once the architecture is done and doing the interiors with them or somebody else, so a lot of that thing comes in. And then one thing it really taught me was the precision in how to manage time. Project management really taught me that, because all of these projects have a timeline of 3 years. There was no, except maybe the Spice Center Toronto, but I wasn't involved in that after the design. So I have enjoyed my journey and absolutely pro bono. I've reached that stage in life. He has a journey to go through. Thanks for the opportunity. I always enjoy talking to young people. I hardly ever give presentations, so it's good to talk. All right. Dafis, all the best to everyone.